My name is Steve Lorenz. I'm with the University of Massachusetts Dartmouth, and it's my pleasure to introduce Massachusetts Senator Edward Markey. My challenge is I was told I only have 2 minutes, so for nearly 4 decades, Senator Markey has been a congressional champion of science, technology, engineering, and climate change action. Since he was first elected to Congress in 1976, Senator Markey has promoted investment in science research and technological innovation in the marine, life, and biosciences. He's been a fierce advocate for research into our environment, oceans, and climate. In Congress, Senator Markey has worked hard to maintain sustained, robust funding for ocean science research, and he consistently leads requests for funding for the National Science Foundation, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and NASA. In 2012, the Science Coalition honored then Congressman Markey as a champion of science for his strong commitment to funding research that keeps the United States, including Massachusetts, at the forefront of scientific discovery and technological innovation. Senator Markey is one of our leading voices in Congress for translating science and technological research into energy, environmental, and telecommunication policy. He led efforts to pass the landmark Energy Independence and Security Act of 2007, which boosted fuel economy for cars and trucks, the first increase in fuel economy in 32 years. In 2009, he partnered with Henry Waxman to write the landmark Waxman-Markey bill, the only comprehensive climate legislation to ever pass a chamber of Congress. He authored a 1993 law that expanded the available broadcast spectrum for commercial enterprises and the landmark Telecommunications Act of 1996, ushering competition and private sector investment into the telecommunications marketplace. It is my distinct honor to introduce Senator Edward Markey.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you to UMass Dartmouth and all the great national leadership that you provide, and thank you to everyone who is here. Thank you to Admiral White. It's great to be here with the Admiral. I'm married to a retired Admiral, so I know how to salute people and try to get their agenda implemented. So it is, it's a great privilege to be here. And we thank all of you for your advocacy on this overarchingly important issue. 2 years ago, I was here at the Consortium for Ocean Leadership's annual Public Policy Forum and spoke on the importance of science and solutions for a resilient ocean. But the tide has changed in the past 2 years, and not for the better. This administration is in denial about the reality of climate change. It is in denial about the rapidly changing oceans of our planet, causing sea level rise and unprecedented storm surges. They're in denial about how bad an idea it would be to open up virtually all of America's coastlines to the drills and spills of offshore oil and gas development. It is crucial that we have real, honest discussions about how to solve the problems facing our oceans and coastal communities. We will only be able to rise to the challenge of protecting our oceans and addressing the sea level rise threatening our coast if we all work together. Massachusetts understands the power of partnerships. I am proud that UMass Dartmouth, the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute, and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology are all part of the consortium for ocean leadership that are represented here today. On January 4th, 2018, the Trump administration announced that it would expand offshore oil and gas leasing to encompass around 90% of the United States federal waters. That's over 1 billion acres. And let's be clear, offshore drilling is a dirty business. There is no such thing as immaculate extraction. Back in 2010, I oversaw the investigation into the Deepwater Horizon disaster. I was the chairman over that committee investigating the Deepwater Horizon disaster. What we found was an oil industry that prioritized speed over safety and valued their bottom line over what might happen at the bottom of the ocean. Today is no different. The ocean environment needs to be preserved for future generations. Incredible and unique species in Massachusetts and around the globe, like the endangered North Atlantic right whale, need their habitat protected. A protected habitat leads to economic benefits for our ocean communities. Fishing and tourism in Massachusetts generate upwards of $20 billion in economic value each year. One of our coastal treasures, the Cape Cod National Seashore, attracted over 4 million tourists in 2014, resulting in an economic benefit of more than $230 million. An oil spill would leave our coastal economies and ecosystems in ruins, all for big oil companies who will sell this oil overseas to China and other foreign nations. George's Bank should not become Exxon's bank. And to prevent the public from speaking out against this plan, the Department of the Interior has been hosting public meetings where the public is prevented from speaking. These public hearings, quote unquote, are nothing more than a sham, and the Trump administration should be ashamed. But last week, we gave the public in Massachusetts a voice. I held an historic gathering at the New England Aquarium to hear from fishing community representatives, marine scientists, environmental groups, and the tourism industry. We came together to share how offshore drilling would harm Massachusetts. We've heard the opposition to offshore drilling and the need to protect our coastlines, and we will not stop fighting until this reckless and dangerous Trump drilling plan is abandoned. And I've introduced legislation to protect our coastlines, and I will use every legislative tool available to me to fight this plan, including the Congressional Review Act, which allows for agency decisions to be reversed with a majority vote. We know there's a process in place to deal with offshore drilling. It includes the governor of Florida calling the President of the United States to say, can we take Florida off the list? Right? It might endanger my ability to run for the United States Senate in 2018. And by the way, Mr. President, Mar-a-Lago might have an oil spill. And we don't want Mar-a-Lago to turn into Mara Lagoon. So why don't we just take Florida for drilling off the list? But the process for every other state, including Massachusetts, is you don't have a voice. You don't have an ability to actually testify. They come to the state and they create a sham. So on Monday, I allowed 15 different witnesses to testify before me in terms of their concerns, and it was recreation, it's fishing, it's tourism, it's every issue. The Sierra Club, everyone testified. Then the next day, no one gets to actually testify. You can hand in a piece of paper which they'll collect like it's a final exam, and they'll then determine, they'll get back to you later, but no speaking allowed. Well, that is just plain wrong, and we have to make sure that our voices are heard on that issue. And we also need to address the biggest challenge threatening our oceans, which is climate change. 2017 was the third warmest year on record. Only 2015 and 2016 were warmer. Instead of opening new areas for drilling, we need to be drilling down on developing new technologies like offshore wind. So imagine you're in Massachusetts. We just had having storm after storm, which is hitting us in Massachusetts. It's week after week now. We have the fastest warming body of water on the planet outside of the Arctic, and it's right there, the Gulf of Maine. And then the oil industry and the Trump administration have the temerity to say, we want to put oil rigs off of your coastline, adding insult to the already existing injury, right? Let us have more of the fuels that are actually causing the damage to you off of the coast of Massachusetts. How bizarre is that thinking, huh? So we can't allow that to happen in Massachusetts, and we can't allow it to happen anywhere else in the United States. We know the science is accurate. We know that this is happening, and we have to make sure that it stops. That is why I've introduced the Offshore Wind Act, which would extend tax credits for offshore wind projects through the middle of the next decade, and I have never heard of a toxic offshore wind spill. But we just can't wait for action. Because we're the fastest warming body of water, fishermen are now seeing black sea bass, lobster, and herring moving northward towards cooler waters. A recent study estimated that global fisheries may lose as much as $41 billion by 2050, all due to climate change. The effects of climate change are already obvious, from the eroding coast of Cape Cod to storm surge in Situate. January's bomb cyclone broke the flood record in Boston, set by the blizzard of 1978, and this is going to be the new normal. 13 of the top 20 biggest flood events in Boston history have occurred since 2000. In the span of just 3 months, Massachusetts has had 3 record-breaking storms. Our communities and our oceans are feeling the pressure of the changing climate. We cannot afford to bury our heads in the sand while our seas continue to rise. And in Massachusetts, we're also proud of our track record when it comes to protecting endangered species like the right whale. We've found science-driven solutions that have helped the right whale. 10 years ago, a simple shift in the shipping lane of commercial vessels in and out of Boston Harbor reduced ship strike mortalities of whales by 80%, while only increasing travel time for those vessels by 10 to 20 minutes. We have to keep working on other solutions. Lobstermen in New England have taken steps to lessen the odds of whale entanglement in fishing gear, but we now are seeing that gear in Canada may be taking a toll. We need to take action with our international partners to protect these treasured animals before it is too late. We need to fully and quickly implement the Marine Mammal Protection Act, which requires that imported seafood comes from nations with the same strict marine mammal protection measures that we have in the United States. And we need to keep moving forward with action on climate change and work to make sure the right whale and other marine species can survive and that they can thrive. We are seeing right now firsthand the toll that climate change is taking on our oceans. And I'm going to keep fighting in the United States Senate to protect our oceans and the communities that rely upon them. But we will need your help. We need your ideas on how to best solve the right whale crisis and how to help our oceans adapt to the changing climate. We need your help with creating science-based solutions that leverage the best technologies. We need your help moving research, technology, and partnerships forward to understand and protect our oceans. If we work together, we can create a wave of change for the better. We're at an historic inflection point. When I asked scientists inside of this administration, how do they feel? They tell me that fear is rampant if you are a scientist working inside of the Trump administration. These people should be respected. These people should not feel a threat if they stand up for science, if they stand up for what is right. So I take it as my responsibility as the chair of the Climate Clearinghouse Task Force in the Senate to make sure that the voices are heard, that people can, in fact, know that there are those of us who are out here who are going to fight for good science. And they must know that this is the case, regardless of the agency that they work at. That's our responsibility. My wife was a career public health service doctor when she retired as a 2-star admiral. And we know that prevention is the key in public health, whether it be for individuals or for a planet. And the planet is running a fever, and we have no emergency rooms for planets. So we have to engage in preventative care of the planet. And we have to put in place the policies that are going to ensure that we don't see the worst, most catastrophic effects of climate change, of drilling, of any of these policies that we know are going to attempt to be implemented during this Trump era. So to fight the Koch brothers, to fight special interest money, to fight all of those who want to deny science, we thank you for being on the front lines. This is our generational challenge. It's a return to battles that we thought we had won a generation ago. We thought we had won in terms of the science. We did not have a final victory. This is the time. This is the place. You are the people who are leading this fight, and I thank you so much for everything that you are doing. And all I can tell you is that I am going to do everything in my power to stop these destructive Trump-era policies that endanger the oceans, not just of the United States, but of the entire planet. Thank you all so much for everything that you're doing.